Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is episode number 8, the common denominator of success. I'm with Elise this morning, and we're going to talk about aligning belief with behavior.
Good morning, Francis. Hi, everyone. Great to see you. And today's conversation, I think, is one of the most important ones and has had one of the biggest impacts for me personally. It's a word that we speak about in religious teachings and in psychology books, and that word is belief. And I think it's so important for us to understand exactly how belief impacts our behavior and essentially our results.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is the core of many of us struggling to when we want to manifest something, we realize that the reason why it doesn't really work is because there's a lack of belief. And so we will explain today what's going on really into your mind. We had the chance to talk about the stick person and how the conscious mind, the subconscious mind works in order to create the results. And so I think with this session today, you'll truly understand what's going on and why maybe you don't have the results that you want. So aligning belief with behavior is so important. So like you said, at least one of the most important word that a lot of religions can agree on is that what you believe is what you create. And so we're going to go right into another quote. I think that's important because today what we would like to invite you is to have an open mind. And that's something that's very important. Open-mindedness is essential for belief. Closed minds do not inspire faith, courage, or belief. If really you don't have an open-mindedness, there's no way that there's going to be a change in your life. If you want to create something new, you got to be open to have something new and change whatever is familiar to a new territory where you can be in the unknown. And that's why power practice is so important. We talked about the terror barrier last episode with the fear. And so in order to get into a new territory, first step first, you got to be open-minded.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying is so important because just on that previous slide, in wanting to reach goals, we know we have to get out of our comfort zone. And we always talk about how growth is the aim, right? You may be working towards something specific, but we all know we need to become a new person. We need to grow into the person that reaches those goals. And open-mindedness is so important because you need to actually shift your belief in yourself, your thinking of yourself, your self-image. You need to believe that you can become that person. If you have a closed mind, you'll always actually find reasons not to. You'll find excuses. And I think that's why the open-mindedness and the deep belief is so important. So this stick person that we keep referring back to, I hope you're understanding why this picture is so important. And here the idea of praxis and the alignment of your belief in your conscious mind, it coming into your subconscious and then affecting your behavior is so important. When I look at this slide, in the terror barrier we spoke about, you have an X vibration becoming Y, and that's why when you start feeling anxious and nervous because things are misaligned. And this word praxis is all about the alignment, right? And believing or thinking about something in your conscious mind is actually quite like an analytical, logical process, right? You kind of go, I want to reach this goal. I'm sure it's doable. Logically, you can think through it. But the question is it embedded deep in your subconscious mind? I said to Francis earlier, if you're sitting alone at night, only with yourself, do you really believe that's going to happen? Are you really being honest with yourself? And I think this lesson requires a lot of personal awareness and honesty. What in that still small voice deep in your gut, what do you believe you're capable of? What do you believe you can achieve? Because only when it's deep in that subconscious, when you truly believe something will happen, that is when you're willing to take the action. That's when you get uncomfortable and get out of your comfort zone and take actions that you typically didn't do. And it's once you're willing to do that, because that deep belief is in your subconscious, that your action and your behavior changes. And then ultimately you get those results.
Absolutely, and I love this stick person because there's a lot of things happening in there. We see these little antennas just on top, and what it means is really all our sensory factors. And so whatever we see, we hear, we touch, we smell, all of these five senses usually is what we take from in order to believe something. We were basically saying, I need to see on the outside, I need to see the results on the outside before I can believe it. But really, what we're saying is that this belief must start within first, regardless of what's happening on the outside, regardless of what the sales sheet look like or the P&L, or we need to really believe that it's possible. And it's not always easy because we've been programmed. Now we know how the program works. We've been programmed since we're young that, we gotta, before making a decision, it has to be really safe. And when it's safe, then you can make that decision. And if we look at all the successful people, they were able to have a vision that was so exciting and create from that, regardless of what was on the outside. They made a decision. We're kind of going back now to all the lessons so far, made a decision that this is what I'm going for, and they assigned a meaning to it. I think that's another thing. It's having an intention and having a reason why it's important to me. Then the place where it's difficult, it's that we don't know how we're going to achieve this yet. But the first thing that needs to happen is a vision, then making a decision with an intention as to why is that so important, and really create this belief, and not hopefully, but repeat it in so many times that it becomes really something that deep down in your gut level. And that's the work. And I think one of the ways I thought this morning about how to integrate a new belief that maybe you haven't had is to think about the fact that really at the end of the day, we're driven by a belief, and we have the choice to believe anything we want. If we're thinking about anything that we've heard on let's say the food industry, and they would say, oh, this coffee is good for you. Coffee is really good, and everyone's going on the trend of having coffee, for example. And then they're like, no, coffee is not good. This is acidic, and it's not a great way to start your day. And I'm just giving an example of coffee, but you can have an example on everything. And there will always be a study that will contradict what has been said. So at the end of the day, what matters is not any types of studies, is what you believe. And if you're really thinking about all the stuff that people have done, the very successful people, they had this belief that something was possible, even though anyone thought it was impossible. So it's not even important what you believe. What's important is your belief aligned with the results that you want. Who do I need to be? What do I need to believe in order to achieve this goal? And if we know at all the people that had so much success in the world, they could be on the physical realm, or you look at the pro athletes, they've done crazy things. So that gives us the indication that we can do anything. So to me, that just taught, that's what I reflected this morning. I don't even need to know. I just need to choose. Just need to choose the belief, because what I will choose at 100% level in my deep gut feeling, that's what is going to materialize. That's all. We just need to pick the belief that we need to have. And then once we have it in the subconscious level, it starts to create different behaviors, and these behaviors will create the results.
I was just laughing about the coffee example you mentioned, because it actually goes back to a lot of medical research, right? I mean, the placebo effect has been proven over and over again. And what is that, right? That's someone believing that something is going to happen. It's believing that the medication will work or will not work. Or, I mean, you've heard of phantom pregnancies. I mean, these things are for real. And if your body can actually change just from a certain belief, just think how your actions can change. I mean, this is actually, the actions are actually so much simpler than changing your actual genetics, right, in your actual body. And it's been proven over and over again. And I think it's once you have that deep ingrained belief that you're willing to do what it takes. I think we so easily have excuses and can think of reasons not to. But once you've made that decision, and I think it's like a definite decision, you're like, this is going to happen. So then the action is almost just part of the process. It's not, what will I look like, and will it be embarrassing, and what will the people say? You're so focused that everything else almost becomes irrelevant.
And I'm glad you bring the placebo effect, because I was actually reading the book, The Placebo, You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and there's so many stories of people that Here's one thing that they mention is that people that are having, let's say, cancer treatments, 29% of the people are getting sick even before they go for the treatment. So their thought is creating
Hmm.
something in their body that triggers the chemical effect of being sick.
Yep.
So it started with a thought. And so now you can say, well, is that possible to create something positive instead of negative? And they talked about different studies where people were in their mind rehearsing playing piano and other people that were really playing piano. And at the end, they had tremendous changes for the people that only played in their mind. Like there was a real difference of results. And same thing for
Yep.
people that were shooting basketballs in their mind as opposed to the one that were truly acting. So I think from the standpoint of knowing how the mind is so powerful, then it means that you can really create this belief yourself. And one thing that I thought when you were sharing is a great way to see what's inside your subconscious mind is, I think, is when we stretch ourselves. So for example, if I say, what if next year your business is going to double? Do you believe it? And if you have this kind of resistance, I maybe I don't really believe it. That I have a
Hmm.
subconscious mind that's in the way, and that's why it doesn't work. And so you can kind of say, well, why am I thinking that? Well, because of the economy or because of this and that. Well, is that true that even in a bad economy, some people are making a lot of money, and sometimes even in a good economy, some people are losing money? So it has nothing to do with the outside. It's really having anything to do with the inside. And knowing that, that's a great news because going back to the placebo analogy, whatever you believe is what's going to show on the outside. And that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the open mindedness comes to it again, right? I mean, are you willing to believe that something can happen? If the economy is bad, are you willing to believe that there are opportunities? And are you willing to act on them? So this Napoleon Hill quote is amazing. Remember, no more effort is required to aim high in life, to demand abundance and prosperity than is required to accept misery and poverty. Yeah, isn't that a stark reminder that you get to choose? I mean, there are lots of people that say, there's not everything is easy in life. You get to pick your hard. Are you going to accept misery and poverty? Or are you going to stretch yourself and be willing to grow to be able to get abundance and to get the life you really want?
Yeah, and the way I look at it too is I always give this analogy to my clients is I use this bottle of water, but it's just to say imagine that this bottle of water is the battery of energy that you have during your day. And this energy helps you to create whatever you want to create for your results. And so I ask often is what do you think is the percentage of you focusing your attention on the reason why it doesn't work? Or
Mhm.
and what's the percentage of that? Because it's really truly energy. It's your thought process that is allocated to the wrong thinking. And if you're really honest with yourself, I know you said that requiring some awareness, what's the part of me that truly is focused on negative instead of the positive? And for some, it could be a small percentage, 10%, 20%. And for others, it might be, no, I'm realizing I'm really negative. I'm thinking about the worst case scenario all the time. Well, you're putting all of your energy and all attention. It's truly energy that could be used for creating something completely different.
So there's another conversation that I would love us to have is that Ian Gray article where he says the common denominator of success is forming the habit of doing what failures are not willing to do. And I think it goes a little bit back to what we said earlier about, what are you focused on and what are you willing to do to be successful? And Bob Proctor talks about, asking people what makes people successful, and it's not like successful people necessarily love doing the things that unsuccessful people aren't willing to do, but they've formed the habit. If it's in a sales environment, cold calling, a lot of people tell me I don't like that. So you can either make excuses, procrastinate, not do it, or you can say, I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to get good at it. I'm willing to get uncomfortable. And it's actually just something I'm going to do. I'm going to make myself, I'll have the discipline and make myself make 20, 50, 100 calls a day. And I'm willing to do that. It doesn't mean that they absolutely love it and it's their favorite thing to do, but they've created the habit of doing that. And let's be honest, the more you do something, the better you get at it, and you'll probably start enjoying it anyway. But I think it's willing to have the discipline of giving yourself that command, sticking to it, and actually, deep inside, you making yourself proud every time you do that. I mean, if I think about me personally, every time I do something that I don't really feel like doing, I'm so proud of myself that I actually do it, because I feel like I'm showing up for myself. I'm showing myself that I'm willing to get uncomfortable and that I'm willing to stick to something that's important to me to be able to reach my goals. And I think that commitment is actually just a promise that you're keeping to yourself, regardless of anything else. You're making yourself proud. You're showing that you're committed, you're persistent, you have grit, you're willing to do what it takes. And those are the people that make things happen.
Yeah, I like that the fact that you talked about habits. That's why I brought the slide back of, really thinking or with the new belief, if I look at my habits, are they the ones leading to the results? And so sometimes, we creating a new habit is not always fun, and it is required if you want to have something new. If you don't change anything, then that means you're in a familiar world. It's going to be predictable results, predictable future. Is this really what I want? And if I keep doing the same thing over and over again, what's my predictable future? Is it going to be a great future? Am I going to increase my sales? Am I going to increase my income? Am I going to change the relationship that I want to change? If what's going to happen in 6 months from now, in a year from now, in 5 years from now? And if we're asking ourselves these questions, we might realize, oh, I don't want this future. This is really not what I want. I got to change. And that's why it's always good to go back with the mix of what's my vision and why do I want this? So if I know that my vision is so extraordinary, I'm excited about it, I have elevated emotions around it, I'm emotionally involved with this goal, and then all of a sudden, even if I don't know how, I've made that decision, I have a great intention, I know why I'm doing this, it's exciting, then if it's really important, I know that I will change my habits. And I'm going to, with these new habits and the way of being, then I will create new results. And when you talked about some of the calls, in my mind, it's creating new habits, and it's also asking ourselves, who am I being doing these new habits?
Mm-hmm.
If I associate a meaning of, the better I get at making these calls, the better I am at doing this activity, then I'm gaining confidence, I'm getting better, I'm getting the results, and that's exactly what I want. So now my meaning into something that I necessarily didn't like to do, what failures don't like to do, now I'm thinking, well, this is going to really lead to success. And every time I'm improving, it's only feedback. And going back to what we said about the self-image, right? It's the cybernetic. It's a mechanical process where we have an action, there's a reaction. We have an action, there's a reaction, and we constantly readjust to the target. It's just that. It's just a feedback mechanism on our habits that eventually leads to the results.
So this example of the cold calling reminds me of a client that I have. So he runs a business that is like a financial advisory business, and he often gets in like new interns in the summer to come and work for them, and then over time, if they do well, they're offered a job. And a lot of these people, it's their first kind of working opportunity, and he speaks so much to them about making these calls, right? So a lot of what those guys are required to do is to reach out to new prospective clients. And he says that, some people are just willing to learn, to be bad at it initially, to improve, to take the feedback, and just iterate, and willing to improve and get uncomfortable. And some people just won't do it. Someone will put the phone down on your ear, or they'll just be like, absolutely no, and you haven't even finished your first sentence. Or they just put the phone down on you. And, we know that those are things that people need to go through if they want to be successful. And he's always fascinated by who is willing to do it. And he says to them, how badly do you want this thing? I will train you, I will show you, but I'm also going to tell you what it takes, right? So they expect a certain percentage of success out of a number of calls, but he said you can't take it personally. It's almost like a numbers game in that space, right? Like there's a certain amount that you're willing to do. You must know that not every person is going to respond well to you, and you need to be okay with that, because we know that if you go through that difficult period, eventually you're going to start getting business. You're going to get a book of business. And in this insurance kind of financial advisory space, that recurring revenue is a big deal, right? So everyone needs to go through that really tough, difficult period of where you're really challenging yourself. And then things get easier and easier. And the more their books grow, the bigger their kind of percentage revenue becomes. So it actually becomes, really lucrative over time. But he said to me, someone told him right in the beginning of his career that he was like, some will, some won't. Who cares? Who's next? That he
Yeah,
said
I love that.
he always told himself that some clients will want to speak to you, some clients won't. Who cares? I'm moving on. I know what I need to do. I know this is part of the process of me getting results. And obviously, today he has lots of referrals. He has a huge book of business. He doesn't have to make cold calls. He sometimes does when he wants to. The point is, you have to go through that phase in order to be successful. And I loved his attitude towards it because he's like, I can't take it personally. This is something I'm going to go through. And I know that it's almost just it isn't a long-term thing, but it's part of my growth, and it's me showing up for myself and me showing myself what I'm willing to do and what I'm made of, right? Because you're showing how resilient you are to be able to take no's from other people.
That's an amazing story. I love it. Like, what did you say? So it's some will,
Some
some
will,
won't.
some
Who
won't.
cares? Who's
Yes.
next? Yeah, I love it. This is great. This is an amazing. I wish I had this guy in my early career for sales. That's for sure. I mean, this is so important, and there was a lot of thoughts that came to my mind when you were talking about this because we said in our own post for the event that the role of the self image and execution and consistency is so important. So what's the image that you can create about yourself? What's the script you can create about yourself while you're doing this? The other idea that I had is sometimes all we need is also associate or have a meaning said differently to what we do. I know that some people say, "Oh, I don't like sales." Well, why don't you like sales? Sales is service. If you see that as a service, if you see that what you're providing is actually saving lives, if it's for insurance or if it's an umbrella of safety that they provide, now you know that what you do is meaningful. And then all of a sudden, making that phone call, not taking it personal, like you said, some people will say yes because whatever you provide. And it reminds me of a story. I don't remember which book, but he was selling an alarm system. And this guy one day probably had the same type of feeling. I don't know. I feel like I'm begging, or I'm pushing. And then I think the story was that there was a time where there was someone that didn't buy, and months after, the house went on fire. And he realized that it's almost like he took this responsibility that no more, never again, I will let that happen. Like I will make sure that people will be protected. That's why I'm working. That's why I'm selling my alarm system or smoke detector system, whatever it was. So for all companies, there's a reason why they're there. There's a reason why they are in business, because they provide something that's meaningful for whoever buys it. And sometimes, like you said, some will, some won't. Who cares? And who's next? And I love this. This is amazing. So good.
And I think it's so, like what you said now about serving is so important, because if you believe that what you're doing is truly there to help people, I mean, sure, the client might choose not to take it up. That's their decision, but you gave everything you had to do what's in their best interest. And I think that, again, that alignment with what you're doing and believing that it's truly right for people is so important. And I just want to bring it back to like a team environment, because I think we talk a lot about, success and culture, and all of that is actually just, people coming together and aligning behind a goal. Businesses spend so much time and effort thinking about strategy and what they want to do and having these big goals. And so often that's in a really pretty PowerPoint presentation, but it doesn't get executed. And what is that? That is people not taking the right action. So, in a team environment, how much time, and maybe it's a question for everyone, how much time do you spend really making sure that people believe and are aligned with what you're doing? Does everyone buy into the strategy? Does everyone buy into where you're going? And does everyone believe that they're doing what's right for the customers? Because that's when we're all behind what we're doing, that people find purpose in what they do, and that they're willing to go the extra mile to make it happen.
Yeah, it reminded me of a company that I won't name, but I worked for this company at one time, and they had a lot of restructures, and they came up with some sort of an initiative, and they say, yeah, this is what we're gonna do. And to be honest, I think there was a misalignment of their behavior with their belief because it just didn't jive. Like people are not stupid. They can just say, yeah, that sounds like it's just a little initiative that you guys are saying for looking good, but you don't really believe it. And so that's why it's very important. Like if you're really creating an initiative, you got to be aligned with your belief and show in your behavior that this is the truth. This is what we truly want to achieve for the company, for our customers, for our clients. So this is so important. And as a sales manager, even I remember when I was a sales manager, if I didn't really fully believe in something, how can I make the employees believe in the same thing? It's impossible. So people at the top or the leaders, this is a very important lesson to really ask yourself, whatever I'm talking during my sales meeting or my meeting with the employees, do I firmly believe what I'm saying? Because if you don't, chances are it's not going to work. And it goes the same way. I think you have actually a story about that sometimes people could be in a team, and once one person leave, the whole dynamic changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people can see when you're being authentic. If you're trying to sell something to your team and you don't believe it, you can absolutely, your team will know it, right? They may not even know what exactly is wrong. They'll just know something doesn't feel right. So there's a company that I work with, and the CEO had this kind of leader in his organization that often undermined him and didn't really align with things. And I think he was almost trying to ignore it because it was scary for him to have to imagine losing this guy who had been in the organization for a long time, and technically he was very strong. And a lot of people around him, were concerned about it, but I think he just actually didn't want to believe it. And over time, this became more and more apparent, and he was thinking, like, what should he do in the longer term? He tried to have conversations with him, and then something really scary happened. This leader, together with 4 people in his team, decided to resign on the same day. And it was absolutely terrifying for the CEO because he was like, how am I going to execute on my project, and what is it going to mean for our organization? And I remember saying to him like a few days later that, what if this was the best thing that ever happened to you in your organization? What would that look like? What opportunities would that create? And as we were speaking, initially he didn't want to hear about it, but as we were speaking, it was like, now he won't have to deal with this guy that's always trying to undermine his new strategy, because he had this amazing growth kind of plan for the organization. What if I don't have to deal with him anymore? I don't have to try and convince him. I don't have to deal with someone who's always misaligned with this vision we have. And now it's a few months later, and they are absolutely thriving. They have used the budget available for those 5 salaries to bring in new people that are aligned and they're energetic, and they've now actually taken over a different organization that came with a whole bunch of contracts, and they've just hit the ground running. It was incredible. And I get so excited. I'm actually seeing him in 2 days' time. I'm excited to hear the update again because it's just, things are moving in the right direction. And I truly believe it's because people are aligned. They have the right people on the boat. They have people that believe in the vision. They have people that are aligned with wanting to do the same thing. And everyone is committed to one another and committed to making a success. So, that just shows you that if there are people in your organization that are always against the grain and find things that are negative and don't want to support things, sometimes the best thing that can happen is if they just move somewhere else, and it's not that they're bad, and it's not that anything is wrong with them or you. It's just, you need people around you in your personal and your professional life that are willing to support you, that are aligned with you, that are, moving towards a common goal, because that's when, all the energy is going in the right direction, and that's when the right things start to happen.
Absolutely. I just thought of the battery, the same thing. If you're losing your time and energy just to try to convince someone because they're not misaligned and they're undermining whatever you say, this is not good. And, A players like to be with A players. the one that are, always complaining, and they see the reality from the outside always instead of creating it from the inside. It's not fun. It's not fun, and it undermines the results. I also thought about one of my clients where thanks to his vision and his excitement to create a whole new business, went to the competition to just kind of analyze what was going on, and ended up hiring the manager from the competition. And this guy has so much experience, and he's so aligned with my client's vision, and things are just growing so fast. Like they have, I think, almost every month 1,000 new customers. It's in a retail business, and they have so many followers, more and more. They're all excited. They have a vision. They have a vivid vision. They have their values that are all aligned. Every time they're on the call, his manager and my clients, they're just raving every week. There's a win, and we've got X amount new clients this week. We have a loyal customer, and then we have these followers, and they're so excited. And I see a big difference between his previous team, that it was like the atmosphere every time. I made some calls with them, and I was giving them some of this theory, and you can tell that some people didn't really fully grasp it. And now, big contrast with this guy that fully embraces it, is fully open-minded to learn new things, even though you can say he's in his 60s and he's seen a lot of things, but he's very eager to learn more. Actually, he's even meditating right now. He didn't even meditate before. So just to show, open-mindedness is so important. And now the results are crazy good. And yeah, so and I'm glad that, your clients saw a big difference. There was a lot of fear, I'm sure, in the beginning, but now when you realize you can reframe it, you had a perfect way of reframing this situation. And all of a sudden things are flourishing. And I want to bring
look,
up.
he didn't want to hear it at first. When I was like, maybe this is the best thing. It was like, it's too soon, Elise. And I think often that happens, right? I mean, we're kind of emotionally, we're in shock, but it's so important to have people around you that can go, what if this was amazing? What's the good in the situation? And challenge yourself to just always think about the opposite, right? Something's bad. What is the good? Because there'll always be good in every situation, and choose to look for it, because you'll find it if you look for it.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of this quote, like, whatever you think, or not the quote, but this beautiful graphic of, your thoughts are going to generate some feelings, and chemically in your body, it's proven, and then it creates some new actions and results, and these results are going to give you better thoughts, and now better feelings and action. It's just a beautiful virtuous circle. When, as the example you gave for cold calling, you have a thought that, hey, I'm going to create my self script. I'm going to become the person I need to become. Yes, I fail. It doesn't matter, because who cares? Who's next? And then I'm getting more confidence, and all of a sudden I see the progress. And really, it's just a matter of the game. The whole game is progress. It's never about the end result. The purpose of a goal is to grow. So you just get better and better at it. You form new habits. You have better thoughts, better feeling, better actions, better results. Like, it's really living from the inside out.
Absolutely. So let's give people some takeaways and some activities, because I think this lesson is really important for you to unpack your beliefs. Think really truly about what it is that you believe at a gut level about yourself, and that amazing quote that you just had on the screen.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just to say that, everything that is inside you, like, that creates the outer reality. If said differently, you can say a genuine inner growth, what's inside you, and transformation will inevitably lead to outward changes and progress. If you see it inside you, it's gonna show on the outside. That's why you cannot travel within and stand still. If you're traveling in your mind, if there's something that's moving, well, it will move on the outside. That's really what's happening. And now, before we go to the takeaways, I think maybe one question that we can ask ourselves, or ask the audience, is, where are you knowing more than you're doing? Because what we talked about is an alignment of your belief with your actions. So on a conscious level, we can believe something, but do we really believe it in the gut level? So where do you know more than you're doing? Because that's closing the gap of your knowing and the doing. And once it's closed, then that means you're in perfect alignment with your belief and your action, and you don't have any paradigms that's in the way, or any habits, non-productive habits that are in the way for you to create the results.
And the way to know that is to look at your results, right? I think a lot of people, when I say to them, what are your beliefs? They're like, I don't know, I think they're fine. Look at your results. Do you have, and are you, do you have the results that you really want? Do you have, and are you being the person that you really want to be? Your results will tell you whether your paradigms are working for you or against you. And it'll tell you exactly what those true beliefs are. Because I think often, especially when we start going through this kind of self awareness and kind of growth process, that we're actually not sure what the beliefs are. We think they're right, but once you look at the results, you'll know exactly what's going deep inside. And the kind of exploration of your beliefs and knowing yourself better. I mean, that's when you can truly believe in yourself. When you get to know yourself better, that's when you know what you're capable of. And I think this whole journey for me is about that. It's about the self-awareness, it's about the exploration, it's about getting to know what and who you are and what you're made of and what you're capable of. We keep saying about how we have endless possibilities and we have so much potential deep inside of you, but you need to believe that for yourself. You need to know that you're capable, that you're worthy of these results that you want. And I think that, once we go through that journey, that's all this growth that we keep talking about. And once we know that at that deep gut level, that's when these results show up.
Beautifully said. And I'm glad that you say capable, because the reality is we have enough evidence to show that we're capable. And then the next step is really, do I feel worthy of it? And in personal life, it might be for the relationship that you want, or it could, like, for business, do I feel worthy of creating something extraordinary? Am I capable? Yes. Am I feeling worthy of it? Absolutely. So once we change that, it's absolutely fantastic. So now for the key takeaways of today, I think we know now that praxis is really the alignment of your behavior with your actions. So true power comes from aligning what you know intellectually to what you do on an habitual level. And it will become familiar. Even if you do what the failures don't like to do, you're going to create new habits, and these habits will create absolutely great results. Action is the truth. Like, there's no action that reveals your true paradigm. If you're not acting on what you know you should do, then there's just a paradigm in the way. And at least with awareness, like you said, like, we can identify that and then really choose to have a different belief. And self-image is really so important. I'll let you continue on the rest. I want to share that with you for the takeaways.
Yeah, so self-image is, what we spoke about last time, and that's what drives your results. That's what, when you believe you're capable of things and that you really see yourself embodying that success that you want, that's when you start taking the right actions. And I hope that you're seeing that everything we're speaking about is almost like building on top of each other, right? We almost like approaching these fundamental concepts in different ways, understanding how our mind works, understanding how the action is important, and your self-image and your behavior is all needs to be in alignment. And I think from a leadership perspective, you need to embody that belief. You need to truly believe that what you're doing is right, is that it's serving your customers, and that you're leading by example, because your team will see through you. If you're saying things and you don't truly believe it, they will not follow you. So as a leader, challenge yourself and go, do I truly believe that we're doing the right things? Because once people see that authenticity, they will start following you. And then the last one is so important, because to change anything requires a lot of repetition. It requires you to be emotionally involved. It requires a commitment from yourself. We know that our habits and our beliefs have been ingrained over many years, over repetition. These things that we say to ourselves over and over again in our minds every single day, those are the things that eventually become the inner, that become the outer. That's that quote that you were just telling us about, right? What you believe inside will eventually become your reality outside. So are you saying the right things to yourself every day? When we have our, what is it, 70,000 thoughts a day?
Mm-hmm.
What do we keep saying to ourselves? Are we repeating positive things? And are we willing to go through this process of changing our deep beliefs and committing to them emotionally so that our results can change? Now, I think the emotion is so important, because you need to feel it, and you need to almost like sit with a smile on your face, because you need to be so grateful and so ready to receive this future that you want, that almost like when it happens, you must go, oh, I know this feeling, right? Because you should have experienced it so many times through repetition, where you were preparing yourself for this event. And that's when you are embodying this actual person that you need to become, so that you get to live the life that you want.
Beautifully said. And two things came in my mind when you said that. One, Bob Proctor, that was talking to one of the consultants that had a goal of reaching $1 million in income. And once he reached it, Bob asked him, he said, how do you feel? Well, I don't feel really different. It's like, of course, because you rehearsed that the whole time. Now it's time to set a new goal, and you're going to create a new emotion. You're going to create a new way of being. And so it's just so funny that it happens this way. And even for the athletes that won the gold medal, they rehearsed it so many times in their mind that it was just, yeah, the natural thing to occur. They
Like, I've been
really,
there. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I've been there before in my mind. And think about the placebo. Placebo, the people that healed are the ones that they were already healed in their mind before. It was, yeah, of course, with this pill, I'm healed. They didn't know it was a placebo, and then all of a sudden they healed. It's just to show how powerful the mind is. And to conclude, for all of you guys, the people watching, we have a beautiful Google Doc that's available for you for each episode. So there's some prompts, there's some key reminders, and also questions that you can ask yourself and to your team as well. It's all there. It's available. You just need to scan this code. And of course, if you want to reach out to us personally, Elise is an amazing leader. She can truly help you and empower your team. And I know I can do the same. So you can just scan this code, and we can definitely just have a conversation first and see how we can help you. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in today. And thank you, Elise, for your great
Thank you.
stories as usual. It's always a pleasure to have a Thought Leader Thursday with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Wonderful sharing the stage with you. And yeah, everyone, thank you for tuning in. We're really excited to be on this journey with